And joining us now from Philadelphia, someone you just saw in that piece, Republican presidential hopeful Nikki Haley. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks so much, Shannon. It's great to be with you.
All right, let's start with polls. We have brand new Fox News polling looking overall at the field. You are in 5th place at 4%. And then we also have polling that looks head to head how each of these contenders would do, including you with President Biden. It gives him a 6-point advantage. The New York Times says this: her attempts to gain national traction, talking openly about her positions on abortion, taking a hard stance against transgender girls playing in girls' sports, attacking Vice President Kamala Harris, appear to be falling flat with the Republican base at large. So how important is Wednesday night for you? Is it make or break in getting that traction you're looking for?
Shannon, I think the media gets it wrong. They don't see the fact that families have been on vacation, kids have been out of school, Americans have not been paying attention. Once this debate happens this week, it's off to the races. That's when you're going to start to see people really focus in on different candidates, look at what their options are. We feel really good going into the debate. I love debates, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's a great opportunity for Americans to start focusing on who's going to lead us after 2024.
There are some we talked to about coming on to join us this weekend. They didn't want to do that because they're deep in debate prep. What does that look like for you?
Debate prep for me was 80 town halls that I did in Iowa and New Hampshire, where we let everybody ask whatever question they wanted. There was, you get the hard questions, you have to give the true answers, and that's the best debate prep I could hope for. So we are looking forward to going and being on that debate stage, letting everybody see the options. But we're going to talk about our vision for America, our vision of making sure that we stop the spending and lower inflation, our vision of making sure there's transparency in the classroom, our vision of securing our borders, and our vision of a national security that protects all Americans.
I want to ask about somebody, Vivek Ramaswamy, who has been doing well, rising in the polls. He was asked by our Neil Cavuto yesterday, would he take a VP slot? And he said essentially no. He's got a very specific vision for how he would operate as president, and he's the only one who can execute it. Kind of an all or nothing proposition. Is that where you are? Or if you don't win the nomination and one of these other contenders asks you to join the ticket, would you consider it? Or are you a hard no, like Vivek, unless you're top of the ticket?
Shannon, I've said from the very beginning, I don't play for second. I've never played for second. I'm not going to start now. We have a country to save, and I'm determined to save her. It is time for a new generational leader. It's time for someone who has executive experience and has actually managed government like I was when I was a 2-term governor. And it's time for someone who has some strong foreign policy experience that can focus on getting the world safe again. And that's what I'm determined to do.
So let's start there with foreign policy, a big part of your resume. You've said China is beating us every single day. This weekend, over the last few days, the president has gathered leaders of Japan and South Korea to get together. Here's what he said about their discussions.
The summit was not about China. That was not the purpose of the meeting, but it did come. China obviously came up. Not to say we don't share concerns about the economic coercion or heightened tensions caused by China. But this summit was really about our relationship with each other.
So a lot of folks thought it was interesting that he started off by saying this wasn't about China, these meetings, but U.S. Ambassador Rahm Emanuel to Japan has said this meeting is sort of China's worst nightmare. Do you give the president some credit for bringing together Japan, South Korea to tighten those relationships as the threats from China increase?
The problem with what Biden says is he takes the playbook from Obama. He starts apologizing before he tries to show strength. This absolutely is about China. The idea that we can get Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. together scares China. That's exactly what we want. The idea that we are going to work together more with them on tech, on military, on exercises, those are things that China doesn't want. The last thing China wants is a NATO in the Middle East. We want to make sure that we are focused on anything we need to do to get with our allies. It should not just be South Korea and Japan. It should be Australia. It should be India. It should be Israel. And it should be the Arab countries. So, yes, I hope China is nervous, but I doubt that they are because he apologized before he ever got started with his speech.
We are deeply intertwined with China economically and in many ways on trade issues. We're dependent on them for key critical medications, critical minerals, all those kinds of things. You've talked about the fact that you want us to decouple from them as much as we can, but how in reality could we do that?
That's the same question the Europeans used to say about Russia before Russia invaded Ukraine. They thought they were too intertwined to separate. America needs to understand China has been infiltrating America. They have started and been planning war with us for years. We have to be smart. They should not be buying U.S. soil near our military installations. They should not be killing 75,000 Americans a year by sending fentanyl over. They should not be stealing our intellectual property. They should not be building up all of their military because they're getting ready for war. America needs to be smart. No more talking about how economically dependent we are. Let's talk about the fact that we shouldn't be dependent on our medicines from China. We should not be selling them land, and we should be taking back the land they've already purchased. We should make sure we get that infiltration out of our universities. We should make sure that we stop selling them technology that's actually building up their military that they're using to threaten America. And we should create a strong military, not one that focuses on gender pronoun classes, but a strong military doesn't start wars. A strong military prevents wars. This is not the time for the U.S. to be scared of China. This is the time for the U.S. to be strategically smart and say we are not going to let them intimidate us. We are going to become strong and independent on our own and do whatever it takes to keep Americans safe.
But those thousands of products and materials that we are dependent on them for, how do we possibly onshore those? What about the cost that's clearly going to be passed on to U.S. consumers? Is it even practical or feasible in any way to suggest that we could actually do that?
The focus would be on national security first. So, you know, we don't care as much if China buys T-shirts and light bulbs from us any more than we have problems with them buying our agricultural products. But when it comes to the medicines down the aisle in our Walgreens, when it comes to having them get technology that actually hurts our military, those are the things we want to focus on. I mean, look at the fact that they just hacked our Commerce Secretary, and the way she's responding is she's going to China to visit them. That's the wrong approach. We need to go and say we're going to end all normal trade relations until you stop killing Americans. They know exactly what they're doing when they send that fentanyl across the border. 90% of our law enforcement drones are Chinese. You saw how panicked Americans were when a Chinese spy balloon went over our country. Imagine all these mini spy balloons that they have coming over us. It is time for us to get smart. This is not about big corporate money. This is about the fact that we owe it to Americans to keep them safe, and that means we start with all issues that are focused on national security. Anything that would hurt Americans, we need to be focused on. And the way you look at that is if China pulled the rug out from under us tomorrow, would we be ready? And on all those things that would hurt us, those are the first things that we get started on.
And obviously, a concern with China is their friendship without limits, as they call it, with Russia. And that brings us to Ukraine. You've said we need to keep continuing. You've had questions about sending cash, but you said when it comes to military equipment, ammo, that kind of thing, aid, that we should be willing to do that in this fight so that Putin can decisively be thrown back from where he's gone with taking territory and all of the other horrific things that have happened there. But there are, you know, by estimates that we've either spent or appropriated 75 to maybe in some estimates $100 billion to Ukraine. So what do you say to American taxpayers who say, how are we tracking this stuff? Our polling all shows they're exceptionally worried about our economy here and their ability to buy groceries, to put gas in their car, to put food on the table. They're much more worried about the domestic financial situation, and they see this money going over and have a lot of questions.
I, too, am worried about the domestic situation and inflation. I mean, Republicans and Democrats have spent like drunken sailors, and the Americans are paying the price for it at the grocery store and at the gas station. But keep in mind, less than 5% of our defense budget has gone to Ukraine. And remember that a win for Russia is a win for China. America always needs to have moral clarity on being able to tell the difference between right and wrong, moral clarity on the difference between good and evil. When you look at the fact, listen to what dictators say. Russia said after they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. that creates a world war. That's what we're trying to prevent. This is not about troops on the ground. This is not about cash on the ground. This is about making sure they have the equipment and the ammunition to win. And when Ukraine wins, that sends the biggest message to China on taking Taiwan. It sends the biggest message to Iran wanting to build a bomb. And it sends the biggest message to North Korea testing ballistic missiles. American strength has always been a good thing. And when America is strong, the world is more safe.
We know some of your GOP contenders feel differently about that, so we'll watch as you all discuss it Wednesday night. Governor Haley, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much. Go to NikkiHaley.com and watch us at the debate.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.